paper magic will survive like the heat death of the universe, and will...
Oh, it's a smuggler's copter. Would you like to crew this? And then it crashes because they don't understand arithmetic.
All your cards belong to me.
2 minutes into macing him in the eyeballs, I switched to pepper spray. He's like, yeah, it's all right, refreshing. And went back to the mace.
Magic is dying. I'm done. Selling everything.
I might be a hoarder. And
I don't have the crayons or glue to explain this to you right now.
What, are you gonna die twice?
Oil will be worthless before magic cards will.
Well, okay, Dr. Man.
That's Mr. Dr. Professor Jason.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Brainstorm Brewery. Thank you for venturing into the dungeon of BSB. We are here to talk about Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realms meets magic. We've jumped the shark, but maybe that's not so bad. Dungeons & Dragons coming to magic, it might be pretty cool. We're going to talk about the cards coming out tonight, and we have a very special guest joining Jason, DJ, and I, and that is Reuben Bresler. You might know him if you've been around for Magic for a long time, and he does Magic Mics every week. That's a podcast Twitch show you all want to check out, as well as the Broken Pact. So, Reuben, thank you so much for coming on. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
How many years
has it been
since
since
you're on
this podcast? Like seven?
Oh, longer than that.
We looked. I went and looked last week when we were talking to you, and I was like, it was 2-digit episode number, I believe.
Yeah.
So pre-100.
Yeah.
It's
For
been
context, we are on 450 or 460 something.
Ish.
Oh, we're a year away from having to do something for 500.
That's incredible.
Can we quit? Can we stop being a podcast for
Yeah,
500?
you're allowed.
That's what we're allowed to do. Just stop.
There's only like 6 or 7 Magic podcasts left. Very few of them survived the pandemic. I think a lot of people thought that, Magic content was going to enter some sort of golden age when everyone got locked in their house. But, most people were like, oh, there's nothing to talk about anymore.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of people started podcasts during the pandemic.
Yeah,
That's
but
also
Many of them
true.
are still going, right?
yeah, but ones
we
that
were
started
the only-
before,
Correct.
Yeah.
we're the only Isaac Newton that invented calculus during the pandemic.
Right. There you go.
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things that helps us as a podcast is that we have a
Talent.
a niche, a talent. Yes, we have a niche that we can talk about, which always gives us, extra content in that way. And tell us about Magic Mics. How long have you been doing that now? That's with Aaron Campbell and Evan Irwin.
Yeah. We just celebrated our 5th anniversary, I think.
Wow.
We're on to year 6 now. We started at, I think, the 2nd GP Vegas, or possibly the first GP Vegas was like right around when we first started.
Mhm.
And we've been pretty much every Wednesday or Thursday. We're now on Thursdays, but we were live on Wednesdays for a lot of the earlier years. Pretty much every week, the whole way through. And then we've been doing the top 10s that come out on Cool Stuff Inc. for 3 years now. We're on to some pretty niche topics,
Right.
for our top 10s. But we're still going strong, and we still love talking about Magic.
Well, and one of the coolest things about y'all's show that this was, now 2021, whatever, but especially when you started, 5-6 years ago, doing everything on Twitch the way you all were is pretty neat, right? Like that's a cool innovation.
Prescient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, Evan has always been a guy that knows what's next. I mean, he made The Magic Show, which means he was first on YouTube, right?
Yep.
He created the SCG tour when it was, SCG Live and all of that kind of stuff. And he saw that the live weekly news program broadcast live on Twitch was going to be a thing that people wanted. And so he saw the future, and he's very good at seeing those kinds of trends. I just grab onto his coattails and hang on for dear life. And so I'm thankful that we were able to find something early and stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat. We've been delving into Twitch more ourselves since the pandemic, and Twitch is an interesting beast. It's very different than podcasting, the way we had been podcasting for so long. And we're getting better.
We're bad at Twitch.
Slowly better.
It's
slowly
tough.
better.
It is. I'm telling you.
It is definitely a different microcosm of content creation, especially as a podcaster. I don't consider myself to be a streamer. Like, I don't stream. I just go on and record a podcast live in front of an audience. So it's different than doing it in a black box like we're doing it right now, where you get to post edit and cut out things that you accidentally said.
Oh, the editing is necessary. We've never done a
Yeah,
live
that's-
episode,
that's-
and it's because of me.
That's
A live
all of that
episode is
true.
one of the most commonly requested things. We ask people, what do you want for Patreon rewards? What do you want to see from us? And they're like, do it live. And then we're like, no, everything but that.
I mean, I've always been a live performer.
Mhm.
Evan is good in front of a crowd. Aaron has a ton of charisma. So, like, the three of us are fortunate in that we are willing to do that and put ourselves out there like that. And the audience has come along for the ride. So, if you can get over the nerves of it, and
It's not that.
No, that's our problem is. Although I'll say this: we peeled the Band-Aid off a little bit streaming. Our biggest thing is about every week we have to cut some number of things that would probably be best left unsaid on the air.
Yeah.
So that's what it's super. That to me is the bravest part of it.
You just need to self-edit is all you need to do.
I Listen, if you want to hear the stuff that gets cut, you can go to patreon.com/BSB, give us $20 a month, which is as little as $4 or $5 an episode. And you can be like, oh shit, yeah, 100% cut that. Ooh, okay. All right.
Yeah, we have something similar. We have something similar for the Magic Mics where we do our pre-show. And everyone can watch us set up out, like, there's an hour of content of us setting up the regular show and also talking about our lives and our, significant others and TV shows we've watched and meals we've eaten and all that kind of stuff too. So.
No, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. So, well, thanks for coming on. We have Reuben because, one, he's a great guest always, but also because this set, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, is all D&D. And for those who don't know, Reuben has been, you've done a lot. You were the first person I knew who did a really big Magic D&D. I'm doing content for both of these at the same time and all of that. So tell us a little bit about, I'm somebody who's literally never even played Dungeons and Dragons or watched people play the game up close, right? So, what is your take on just bringing D&D to Magic?
I'm shocked it took this long. I mean, Wizards of the Coast has 2 IPs that are world-renowned, decades-old intellectual properties, and never the twain shall meet, right? Like, it was always the policy of Wizards of the Coast that Wizards was like, magic is magic, D&D is D&D, and they're on different floors in the building in Renton, and we're also not going to put events in Las Vegas because we don't want to be associated with gambling, and we've also got these other lines we don't cross. And then, slowly those walls came tumbling down, and now we've got lots of crossovers. We've got, Secret Lair of the Walking Dead, for God's sakes. And, the fact that this is a standard legal set, a tournament legal set, is unique and different. And I am surprised it took this long, and simultaneously worried, because they kind of did need to wait this long to have D&D come to an apex in popularity. It's more popular than it's ever been.
Everyone had to forget the 2001 D&D movie.
Sure, exactly right.
It's been 20 years. Jeremy Irons doesn't bring it up anymore. Like, it's
listen,
time.
I've still got light blue lipstick in my my medicine cabinet just in case I need to play the Dungeon Master. But also 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which came out 6 or so years ago, was a renaissance for tabletop role-playing games. It became the biggest thing, and
I think I remember that.
4th ed, D&D was kind of dying, and then 5th edition came out, and there was a whole rebirth, and it coincided with Twitch live plays. It coincided with the phenomenon that is Critical Role. It coincided with a bunch of other podcasts like the Adventure Zone and Nerd Poker. A bunch of things all crested a wave at the same time. Simultaneously, Magic is more popular than it's ever been, right? More people play Magic now than have ever played before. And so the fact that both of the IPs are doing so well and at an apex makes this perfect timing.
So was going from 4th to 5th, is that just like a rule set change? Was that just...
so...
like a standard format shift, basically?
Kinda.
Not as profound as the difference between 2nd and 3rd, which was like a complete sea change in how like everything worked. 4th to 5th was...
It's more like when the 6th edition rule change came out. or when they got rid of batches, right? Like it's that, or when they introduced planeswalkers. Like there was a huge paradigm shift in how the game operated. Fourth edition was a fine game, but it wasn't Dungeons and Dragons. They kind of tried to reinvent the wheel a little bit. I don't want to get into it too much, but basically it was a good game. It just wasn't Dungeons and Dragons. 5th edition, they came back to their roots. It felt more like D&D. It was much more beginner friendly. They added a bunch of rules that made it more fun for beginning players, and they also emphasized the role play aspect. And so a lot of things led to it. And oh, by the way, live plays got popular, and playing over Zoom and Discord got popular, and Roll20 came out, and D&D Beyond is the digital rule set, making it easier to play with friends across the world. A bunch of things combined together to make D&D super popular.
This is interesting because, you know, we're always talking about Magic and Wizards with Magic. It is easy to forget that Wizards of the Coast is not just Magic, and that, because you're right, Dungeons and Dragons has just always been sequestered, kind of. You know, they just silo the two of them off. So it's really easy to forget that, well, we're so caught up in Magic with Wizards. There's D&D going on at the same time, right?
That's true.
And that's the thing that their entire company is affected by, that we don't ever see talking about Magic on this podcast, you know?
Absolutely.
They have their own drama, their own mistakes that hurt Wizards of the Coast bottom line. They have their own screw-ups over there, and it could impact us. Maybe Magic's got to have a better quarter because of something that happened D&D wise, or vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Magic does shoulder a lot more of the financial burden. Magic makes a lot more money than D&D does, but the IP of Dungeons and Dragons is so much stronger than Magic's. It's
100%. Yeah.
I mean, like, what you have to do the whole, like, what if you're talking to a grandparent or whatever, it's like, have you heard of, so, like, what do you do, DJ, for a job? Have you heard of Magic the Gathering? No. Nope. Well, have you heard of D&D? Yes. Okay, let's go from there.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
And D&D also is not the only tabletop role-playing game that exists. There's been a whole renaissance of other tabletop role-playing games, from Vampire the Masquerade coming out with their newest version. Pathfinder 2nd edition came out recently, to any dozens of smaller companies that are in different themes, different genres, and different rule sets. And D&D is at the forefront of that because of name recognition. So they're riding so many waves with both of their brands. It's great.
It is great. And I think that personally, I'm all for this crossover. I know some people aren't about it. I like that it's a standard set. I think that's neat. I'm all for this stuff in general, though. You know, as far as jumping the shark goes, I think D&D set is so much further down the line than the Secret Lairs.
Yeah.
So
this is not jumping the shark to me at all. This is a natural progression.
Kamigawa is going to be jumping the shark.
Yeah,
that's later. So.
The Warhammer 40K stuff is confusing to me.
At least it's only D&D decks. D&D decks. Jesus, EDH decks.
Yeah, the Lord of the Rings crossover kind of makes a little bit more sense to me. It's a little bit more natural. 40K, I'm not up on the lore on. I have a bunch of friends that play. That's a hobby that's way too expensive for me to get into. But
there's no finance. If we would probably be into Warhammer if, like, you could make money.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no minis resale.
Here's Warhammer finance. Learn to paint and sell them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's a little bit more of jumping the shark, and certainly Secret Lair, you know, The Walking Dead and Stranger Things, I think is a further bridge than a D&D crossover. This makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So can you tell us a little, Reuben, about what you've done, some of the shows and stuff you've done with D&D specific, if anybody wants to go look at that content?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Reuben Bresler. I am the Dungeon Master for The Broken Pact, which was the first Magic the Gathering Dungeons & Dragons live play show officially sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. We have 4 seasons and 5 other specials available on the D&D Twitch and D&D YouTube channels, as well as at Saving Throw Show on Twitch and YouTube. And that is where you may primarily know me from when it comes to Magic the Gathering Dungeons and Dragons crossovers. The first 2 seasons took place in Ravnica, using the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica setting guide. And then the most recent season was set on Theros, using the Mythic Odysseys of Theros setting guide. I'm also the Dungeon Master for Tales from Tetheria, which is on the Lasercorn YouTube channel with a bunch of the old folks from Smosh. And I DM'd a season for them, and hopefully we'll be doing more. I've been a featured guest of Wizards of the Coast as a Dungeon Master at TwitchCon and Gen Con and WonderCon. Among other places that I've been on panels at San Diego Comic-Con talking about Magic, or about Dungeons and Dragons. And yeah, and you can see me as a guest on various other shows of D&D, such as Pirates of Salt Bay. I've been on a bunch of one-shots on channels like Hyper RPG and a bunch of other channels like that.
That's great. I mean,
I realized how my relatives must feel when I talk about Magic, because everything you were saying is like, they got all the Smosh guys on Lasercorn. That's so cool. And I'm just like everything you're saying. I was like, oh God, when I tell people, I read for MTG Prize and Cool Stuff Inc. And they're like, just
Lasercorn is
I literally bought you a giant top hat because I thought when you said Magic cards that you did Legerdemain. I had no idea. I don't care.
Lasercorn is a guy named David Moss. He actually plays Magic. And he has, I don't know, 800,000 YouTube subscribers or whatever on his channel, and so it was nice of him to have me DM for him and some of his friends.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That sounds awesome. You've been really killing it D&D wise.
I am hoping.
I didn't mean to qualify it like that. I'm really sorry. It's like, yeah, Reuben, for a guy who started out Magic, you're really killing it.
Listen,
D&D wise, I didn't mean to.
No, you're good. Not for nothing. I get a lot more stuff in the mail from D&D than I get from Magic these days. So.
Well, so do I.
Sure.
And I don't get anything from D&D.
For the people listening to this podcast, if you are interested in dipping your toes into D&D like I was back in college, like I tried D&D back in college with some friends, didn't really get into it. I was like, I made a character, but I didn't really feel like it was like I couldn't really get into it, right?
Yeah.
Wrong kind of dungeon.
What you said about like having D&D set in the Magic universe was sort of the biggest thing that made me actually interested in trying something out and really being like, oh yeah, this actually sounds like something I want to do.
Right.
Me and my wife and our GM, we found a campaign that was like, oh, this is just in the League of Legends universe.
Right.
Because that's a game I'm really enthralled with. That's just a universe that I love. Legends of Runeterra card game, all that. And I was like, I could absolutely make a character that I would want to be in this universe.
Yeah.
So if you're like, I don't want to just have a Skyrim character in a fantasy where, like, if you can find that sort of that world or that fantasy that you can entrench yourself in, whether it's Magic or whether it's like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever. Right. Like, it doesn't matter. That's the cool thing about it. That's sort of what I found that really made me like interested in the game itself.
I think some people are really intimidated by like not knowing any of the rule set of D&D.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think if you think you'd be interested, really, having played a lot of different RPG systems, the system is there to tell you how many dice to roll.
Yep.
It's really, you're just role playing. You're a character, you're saying stuff, you're doing stuff, and you're asking the DM if you're allowed to do stuff, and then they tell you to roll 3d6 or a d20.
Yep.
It doesn't, the system comes up with the rules, but like you
zero.
don't need to know all of it.
Yeah, it's rule zero.
I've played with so many players that have not touched the rule book, don't know how to play. It's literally just telling stories around the campfire. That's it's improv. It's improv. It's the next evolution of storytelling and getting together with your friends and playing make-believe. I've played with a bunch of people that didn't show up to the table with anything, and they were just like, "Can I do this?" And I said, "Roll this, and we'll tell the story." It's telling a story with dice, is all it is. It is very intimidating because the books are thick, but
I play games where only the DM had dice.
Sure.
Like nobody needed dice. He's like, "I'll roll for you, and I'll let you know what happens." It's
narrate the action.
If you're intimidated, give it a shot and play with experienced people who are willing to start with the beginner. I would say.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the horror stories I've heard is just from like a bad DM makes a bad campaign.
Sure.
I think I'm certainly gonna at some point in this set's life cycle. I think it'll probably spur me to give it a try. But yeah, we're gonna look at the trickle of cards we've got so far. We're gonna go over Mark Rosewater's teasers for Forgotten Realms. But first, we'll hit you with a little magic finance here. How about some Breaking Bolt?
Breaking Bolt time. Breaking Bolt time. Break.
Oh, yeah, Breaking Bulk. There's so much good stuff.
It's a pick. Breaking Bulk. The end.
I have a token from Commander 2020. I'll just say it outright.
Is it the Piper thing?
The what?
A Commander 2020. Is it the retrofitter assembly thing?
No.
Was that Commander 2019?
I could not say, but it is not that. It is
a
creature token from Commander 2020. It is technically a double-sided token, so there's something on the back, but the thing on the back is irrelevant.
Was 2020 the is that the Ikoria decks?
Yes.
Or okay.
Let me look.
I mean, that's not particularly helpful to me. But
Is it
the ones that exist here?
yeah, I don't.
Is it morph or like?
It is not a morph. It is not a manifest. It's not a.
It's a token that a creature or a card makes. I'm sure.
Correct.
I'm going to guess the blue-red flying haste insect token.
That is a very, very good guess, but it is not it. I did consider picking that one.
That's probably more because
yeah,
because you wheel and make 30 of them. So
right.
Like,
yeah, that is a very good guess. That one is also worth money. The blue-red Locust God Insect, but this is not that card. It is similar in demand, but
don't throw tokens away. By the way, I know everyone. The only thing I throw away is the card that says you don't need to play your LGS. Everything else, I kind of. I have the storage space. I keep tokens and I pull through them every once in a while.
Like, there's enough 3/3 beasts out there that like.
Sure.
well, my thing with tokens is
here's another thing to think about. Think about the card that makes it. If the card that makes it is a mythic or a rare, those tokens are inserted at the same frequency. So like if a mythic makes it, hold on to that token because there's not a ton of those. And sometimes it's like, oh, this mythic makes an 8/8.
For the longest time, Hellkite Tyrant was like a $6 token because it was the only thing that made 6/6 dragons. A lot of stuff that made 5/5 dragons. Hellkite Tyrant from Gatecrash was the only thing that made 6s.
Hellkite.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Utvara.
Is it bird tokens?
It is not a bird token.
That's all
Up
I got.
your nose with a rudder hose token.
It is a green creature. It's a 0/0 base.
Is it a fractal or
we are spending a lot of time on this?
It's a Hydra.
Yeah, it has to be a Hydra.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
If it's a green 0/0, it's going to be a Hydra, right?
So what makes it
from Commander 2020? It has a 3/3 beast on the back that is completely irrelevant, but I sell these for $1 a piece. So recently, Amazon had the whole Prime Day get Commander decks for get the old out of style Commander decks for sale. Yeah. It was $70 for 5 of them. So I got all of the Ikoria Commander decks for $70. I bought several sets of them, and then each set comes with like 6 Hydra tokens. So that's like 10% of the entire price of the product that I paid for just in Hydra tokens.
Just in Hydra tokens.
Wow,
it feels good. Tokens are basic land. If you are willing to pick nickels and you're throwing away $17 basic land, like it helps to widen the focus of stuff you look at. Good one, DJ. You stumped all of us. You're proud of yourself with your token that you do every week. You proud? You win with an asterisk this week. Corbin, what do you got?
I have a Planar Chaos rare that's been reprinted many times and recently has been has recently been downshifted to uncommon. Its last printing was Eternal Masters.
Oh, I should know this.
Planar Chaos rare.
Planar Chaos
rare.
Body double. It's a white rare.
Mesa Enchantress.
It is Mesa Enchantress.
Nice.
Yeah, Mesa Enchantress was bulk for a very, very long time, which is interesting.
And then they printed
that,
Sithis.
Yeah, given that it's an Enchantress. But yeah, now the card's worth a couple dollars across all printing.
So-
Sythis is the second most popular Commander in EDH trick right
The
now.
the card most comparable to Mesa Enchantress in Magic the Gathering is Diabolic Tutor.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, that's
And
a good way.
like,
It's like
there are 8,000 versions of it. It is one of the worst versions of this effect you can play, but that doesn't matter. It's still going to be played.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like cards for noobs quite a bit.
Yeah.
Which is why I have a green uncommon from TBD. And
Is
it's
it
not
Hydro's
Destiny
it's not
Spinner.
Destiny Spinner.
Is
I was
it-
I'm good.
Hydra's Growth.
I'm gonna get these dipshits with Destiny Spinner and I looked on. I was like, how long has it been since I picked Destiny Spinner? Literally, my breaking bulk last week. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I should pick a different one. And the different one I picked was the one last week when I stumped DJ with Destiny Spinner. He said Hydra's Growth. And I thought maybe he wouldn't think that I would pick Hydra's Growth this week. But guess what? Hydra's Growth is worth money. Green stuff from Theros. Who knew? Green stuff in an enchantment heavy set. Turns out matters. Reuben mentioned Hydra's Growth before in the precast, and I was sort of like, should I pick another one? But you know what? People should know Hydra's Growth is like $1.50 on Card Kingdom.
Yeah.
Stop bulking these out. Stop. No, continue to bulk them out because I'm the one who buys your bulk. So yeah.
If a magic
ship
card,
is at-
if a magic card is printed with the word double on it, you should probably just put them in your closet.
Yes, that's a great way to do it.
No, actually, in 2021, we use the word triple now, Reuben.
Oh,
yeah, right?
Darn.
Triple. Yeah.
Those you have to put in your safe.
Is so pre-core set 2021.
Yeah, well, there you go, everybody. Breaking bulk. All right, let's talk Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. We've seen a trickle of cards here. Let's start with the major mechanic of the set, the dungeons. So there are lots of cards that say venture into the dungeon. The dungeons are essentially token cards that come in packs. There's 3 different ones. And I liked the way we were talking about before the cast. You just describe them as sagas. Except instead of, moving every turn automatically like a saga does, you have to venture into the dungeon, which is a mechanic, which allows you to then move through this saga and get a lot of effects. So I guess
it's a thing. It's better than learn if you ask me. So
well, I mean, let's just start at the high level here. Does this fit? Like, does this scream D&D to you, Reuben? Is this a good implementation?
I mean, it's fine. I saw these and I was like, this is a lot. This is a lot to have just in my box of things. Like, I'm already walking around with tokens and dice and like a pad with paper. Do I really need to have extra dungeons? And more to the point, do the judges need to be walking around with extra dungeons?
Yeah.
Like, it feels like a lot. With that said, how else were you going to implement this?
Sagas, right?
Sagas, a different type of saga, or a different
and
type
a card
of...
you don't have to worry about drafting. Like, if you take something that says venture into the dungeon, you can just it's like the Prismatic Piper or Basic Land. There's going to be a station with the dungeons when you play this. You can grab any dungeon you want. There's 3 of them.
Which I like.
Well,
I mean,
there's 4 if you count the person that photoshopped the water temple from Legend of Zelda.
I did like
which
that
has
one.
2 rooms with no entrances. I thought that
was great.
You don't have to worry about like, oh, I drafted a card that says into the dungeon. Now I got to draft the dungeon. You get them. It's not a thing you need to worry about. It's just kind of a fun thing to play this in limited on the one booster draft you're going to do, because 2 weeks after the set comes out, there will be another set.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, now that I've had some time to digest what the dungeons are going to be and how they operate, I like them. I mean, they're underpowered sagas that can't be destroyed, so that's a little bit of plus, a little bit of minus. They provide very small incremental value while providing interesting, fun flavor. And I think
it's a way to give like a little bit of a boost to a creature. Like if I wanted to make a 3/3 for 3 cost 4 mana instead of 3, right? Like how do I justify that? Well, instead of figuring out, oh, does it deal it damage? Does it draw a card? you don't have to figure it out. Everything can be templated to say venture into the dungeon. So every creature that like might not be perfectly mana costed or whatever, or completely balanced for limited, you don't have to come up with a bunch of middling, like half of the power of draw one card abilities. You can just slap venture on everything, and it makes it so much easier to balance the set for limited. And our attention span is limited, so like it's gonna be a fun thing. We draft twice, so like
it's a little parasitic of a mechanic, but I think that's fine considering how flavorful it is, how like in your facey it is in terms of like this is the D&D thing. Like it's fine if it doesn't synergize with Theros or whatever. It's fine.
I also think nope. Go ahead,
Corbin.
Okay. I also think that Dungeons and Dragons is a well that they can go back to. This will not be the only D&D set that they ever make. They can make more dungeons in the future, which I think makes it slightly less parasitic.
Yeah, I mean, you can slap venture. I mean, it could be a commander theme in the future. There's all kinds of things they can do with it.
Sheldon has said that like the stuff's fine for EDH.
So I think one of the interesting things about dungeons is that it just further signifies how much they don't care about the old way of doing things. In the sense that, look at the mechanics since Arena came out. Mutate, lessons, learning, venturing into the dungeon.
Remember ability counters?
Ability counters, yeah. Like, they have just completely thrown out the rules, the design paradigm rules that they used to have. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, because the game's always going to be moving forward and so on. But it's starting to get a little complicated, right?
Remember the card from Ikoria that gets a random ability counter out of like 10?
Yes. Yep.
That's some Chandelar.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just a lot. And if I'm playing on Arena, no big deal. Give me all the lessons, give me all the dungeons, but it just is a lot to keep up with in paper. In terms of just the mechanics are just off the wall these days, right? Like, Exert headlined Amonkhet. Okay, that was your creature doesn't untap when it attacks. Right, that was the level of complexity we were at on the main mechanic of a set, and now we're you get three dungeons to choose from. And
Amonkhet had the unearthed ability or whatever. The Eternal, where they gave you the punch out cards, where it was a black token version. Where you slide
the stupid punch out cards?
Yeah, they did also have bricks. Money. That's true.
Brick tokens, yeah. It was. I mean, I guess maybe the brick tokens should have been the.
We're gonna literally build a pyramid, guys.
Yep. I think that this is fine. I from a flavor standpoint, it's a home run, right? Yeah. Like you're designing this set with people who play Magic and want to get into D&D, or people who play D&D and want to get into Magic in mind. And these are easy bridges to build, even if it's going to look like if there was a live professional event and in the finals of the live professional event, someone put a dungeon counter on the table. Like that feels a little weird in my head to be like, we have $50,000 on the line, time to go into the lost mine of Phandelver.
Yeah.
But I'm also fine with it because Magic has always been about kind of, Magic's at its best when it doesn't take itself too seriously. And I think this is great.
You can give a Birds of Paradise 6 swords of whatever, and like have it just be the 7 swordsmen of whatever. Like, there's always been like a suspension of disbelief with that, right? Like you can give 100-handed one a bunch of like I don't know, like you can
arrest a 100-handed one. Yeah.
Yeah.
A bunch of hands, DJ. Can you give him a hand? Can you give him a hand 50 times?
Can you give him 100? 100 of them? All right.
Well, a hand is a. Hey, Corbin, I'm sorry. I hate to derail the podcast, but when you give someone a hand, you clap. So if he has 100 hands, you give him 50 hands.
That's right.
Give him a hand 50 times.
Thank you for spelling out that math, Jason. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you know what? Someone needed to. This is a finance podcast. If we don't care about numbers, what the f are we doing here?
That's a great point. What we are doing here is looking at Adventures in the Forgotten Realm previews. So I'm actually just curious. Reuben, I obviously don't know. How many of the cards that have been previewed thus far that I'm looking at on Mythic Spoiler right now are direct ports from D&D? Like, for instance, Power Word Kill.
Yeah.
Is that that's a D&D spell, right?
That's a D&D spell. Yeah.
What about portable hole?
Portable hole is a
Portable
famous
hole
is a D&D item. Yeah.
Oh,
Vorpal sword.
Vorpal sword is a D&D item. Yeah.
Tiamat. Yeah.
Tiamat is a legendary character in Rise of the Dragon Queen. I would say about 80%, 90% of the cards we've seen so far, the names mean something in the Forgotten Realms or in Dungeons and Dragons.
Or they're generic enough.
Or they're generic enough that they can pass.
Shortcut Seeker, like...
Yeah.
Well, that's
is
what I was
Shortcut
curious
Seeker
about,
really not a D&D thing?
I mean, not
right.
specifically, but it is, it might as well be.
Dungeon crawler.
Right, whereas Dungeon Crawler is a generic name, but also is a thing that is a kind of a D&D term as well. Crawling through a dungeon is like a thing that
it's a game genre,
you do.
right? It's a dungeon crawler.
It's a dungeon crawler,
Dungeon
exactly.
crawler, yeah, that's true.
But some of this stuff, if you played it like any D&D, you're like, Tasha's Hideous Laughter got a card? Oh,
right.
I cannot wait.
That's a spell.
Oh, literally the hideous... Like,
Tasha, yes, Tasha is a of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything fame, has a couple of spells named after her, and Tasha's Hideous Laughter is one of the most famous. And this is a interesting way of interpreting Tasha's Hideous Laughter.
I would have expected it to be a black spell.
I would have too. I would have thought it would have been like a discard spell. This is an interesting... I also like the use of the number 20 as a theme, because I'm not sure if we're going to get, like, roll a d20 on Magic cards. So
we got one from the silver border thing.
Oh, Buzzbart.
Well, yeah.
No, sort of. There's literally sort of Dungeons and Dragons.
There's sort of Dungeons and Dragons, yeah. But, I mean, in this set... I think that using the number 20 as a theme, like we had the number 13 in Innistrad, I think that's an interesting way of importing that theme.
And they're like, if you look, Bruenor Battlehammer gets +2/+0. Is that a direct reference?
So
is it not though?
Well, the character is the +2/+0 could be a D20 reference. But yeah.
I mean,
Bruenor
even in Mark
Battlehammer's
even in Mark Rosewater's teasers, one of these little tidbits is there's a card with ... when its power becomes 20 this way.
Nice.
So there's something that self buffs,
neat.
and when it gets to the number 20, then it does the thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You think it could be a 5/5 that doubles?
Could
its
be
power.
Probably for mana, right? Or a 4/4 would not get there if it.
Probably if you win a die roll.
I think Mosswort Bridge already, or Mosswort Troll already gets +20/+20. So like they've done stuff like that before. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is great. I mean, let's go through some of these other teasers here. Mark Rosewater, before every set, they used to have all kinds of crazy stuff when sets were coming out. There was the Orb of Insight, if anyone remembers that.
Yep.
You could like plug in words and it would tell you if they were on a card.
I loved that thing so much.
And then it got broken by people who knew how to code and could just run deterministic things to basically figure stuff out. And they stopped doing it for whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But now we get Mark Rosewater teasers. And this is what we got. A new enchantment subtype. Okay. All right, so tell me if we've seen any of these things, or I'll just read through them, and any of you jump in. Tell me if we've either seen them yet, or if you have an inkling of what they could do or might do. So we've got a new enchantment subtype. A card granting -11/-11. Now, is there a reason for that number in D&D at all?
So I believe there is a character named 11. Who is
in Stranger Things.
Like Stranger Things. But I believe there is a character. I think don't quote me on that one. But
do you think Stranger Things might have taken the character 11 from D&D, which they reference heavily on the show?
I suppose it's possible.
I didn't know that. All right, that's why we're doing this. All right, next up, a creature.
Reuben doesn't know it either. So
a creature with a death trigger that makes an equipment token. Speaking of complexity.
Sure, that's easy. I mean, there are lots of sentient weapons that exist in Dungeons and Dragons that are created when the wielder of the weapon originally dies and is like sucked into the sword or whatever.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
So, yeah, that's easy.
Now, here's what I'm curious about. A legendary creature that makes a legendary hamster creature token.
Yes!
Are hamsters in D&D?
So, here's a good one. Minsk and Boo are characters who are famous in the Forgotten Realms. They're adventurers. Minsk is a barbarian person who has a bald head and a purple like donut over one eye. And he has a pet named Boo. And Boo is a pet hamster. And Boo and Minsk go on adventures together. So if we're going to see Minsk and Boo, that's going to be, that'll be fun. And I can't imagine there's another hamster that exists that they would print.
That's actually awesome.
So can you theory craft?
How could there be
what
a
the card
second
does?
hamster in an unfathomable amount of parallel universe? I'm sorry.
So what does the card do? Like theoretically, what is the like what color identity? What's this commander color identity?
Is Minsk?
Well, Minsk is
Wait, are Minsk and Boo going to be the same card? What was the description?
It's a legendary creature that makes a token. So
Yes.
it'll presumably have like the activated ability might be a different color. So it could be like mono red with a green ability to be rule or something like that.
So what I'm gonna the tag Minsk is a warrior person. He's a big giant man. And Boo was always described as a miniature giant space hamster. Now I don't, and they never saw any proof of this. It was just a hamster. What I imagine would happen, yeah. So I whatever. So this will probably be like a 4/4 for 4 that makes a 1/1. That when something happens, it gets gigantic. I bet.
That's funny. That's great. Okay, something only previously seen in unsets comes to Black Border. You know, for all I know, this is referring to dungeons because they're very similar to
contraptions.
Yeah. It's kind of what.
Listen, I can sense people rolling their eyes, but like, is any of this any stupider than Stang making a Stang token just because no one had a Stang before? Like, let's chill, man. Magic has done some deeply stupid shit over the years.
Yeah.
We had a whole Arabian Nights set, and Aladdin wasn't legendary. So maybe you can suspend your disbelief a little bit and let us have Minsk and Boo, or sign my petition to get Aladdin made into legend. If you can make all hounds into dogs, why can't you make Aladdin legendary? His name is Aladdin. He has a movie, and he has a second direct-to-VHS movie where I guess Jafar was around somehow. I don't know.
Doing a live action one, so
you can
don't
cast
worry.
your non-legendary Aladdin using your 4 non-legendary Valak at the Molten Pinnacles.
I'm gonna hope that the thing that they're referring to is Last Strike. I'm gonna hold out hope that Last Strike and or Triple Strike are gonna be what we get.
I love Last Strike. That is such a good ability.
It's such a good ability. It makes perfect sense. There are a bunch of slow things in Dungeons and Dragons. Like, you know, it matches up with like rolling for initiative. You know, it's good with combat tricks. You can cast slow on somebody and give it Last Strike. That's cool. So I'm gonna cross my fingers that it's that.
I really hope that's it.
And sometimes you gotta sheath the sword in your own flesh. Wait, that was Wheel of Time, not Dungeons and Dragons. Sorry, I'm getting my shit mixed up.
Yeah. All right. An artifact that's a musical instrument that creates harmony counters. So you're a bard, right? Making a lute.
You're a bard. Yeah, some bard. You're gonna play your lute. You're gonna play your sham, right? You're gonna play your minstrel whatevers and make some harmony counters. That
they already have the Planeswalker Eliwick Tumblestrum.
Yeah, which is a character, by the way, that I don't think exists anywhere else. I think this is a new character. I believe. You feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I don't know of Eliwick Tumblestrum before this set, and also the upcoming Mage's Guide to Strixhaven, or whatever it's called. I think that's the connector piece, is that Eliwick is a planeswalker that teaches at Strixhaven in the book, or at least visits Strixhaven in the book.
Sure. I'm not into any of the lore, but that's good to know.
She's outside.
The card itself, by the way, Eliwick is a 4-mana planeswalker in green, 4 loyalty, +1, venture into the dungeon, -2 will get the top 6. Put a creature card. If it's legendary, gain 3 life. And then -7, you get an emblem that your creatures have trample, haste, and +2 for each differently named dungeon you completed. Now, I'm with you all on the dungeons don't seem enormously powerful outside of really repeated,
and they're not going to have
effects, and this isn't good.
They're not going to have any support outside this set. That's kind of like one of those things where they do something like 4/5 of the way to cool, and then it's like, well, this was so set specific, we can't really come back to it. So like, if you wanted to do a dungeon thing in EDH, you're 80% of the way there, and you will never be 100% of the way there, and you can die mad about it.
Sure.
But the showcase version of Eliwick Tumblestrum looks actually super tight. So like I wasn't
Yeah,
I wasn't 100% sold on this card, but like
it's gorgeous.
at least the alternate versions look decent, and I'm sure there are more than there's probably 7 or 8 different alternate versions. So I'm just referring to the Borderless Showcase.
Right.
Yeah, of course. All right. Next up, a card that can keep your opponent from winning the game. That doesn't seem too descriptive.
I mean, who knows? That could be anything from a Lich with a phylactery of some kind to a Celestial protecting you. You know, it could literally be the card Warship, right? Like kind of, that is so open-ended that it, who knows?
What about Wish from the end of the, again, Wizards is trying so hard to make us forget about this, but I paid $9 to see this in the theater. The 2001 movie, Dungeons and Dragons. At the end, the guy turns red and flies at the screen. Did he use the spell Wish?
It's possible.
Could Wish potentially protect you?
I would be absolutely shocked if a card named Wish were not in, or something with the word Wish were not in the set. It's a 9th level spell. It is one of the most indelible spells available to you in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. And
Can
the
we
word
put
Wish,
this in terms DJ understands. It's when they got all the Dragon Balls, DJ.
Yeah. The spell Wish
And
lets
the concept of what a wish is.
Yeah, it's right. It's the highest level spell you can cast. It can, with it, you can cast any other spell in the game or wish for like something else
out of your sideboard.
Yeah, and I think that since the word wish already means something in Magic, I'd be shocked if there wasn't a wish.
Jason, the card Wish exists in Slay the Spire. Like
Come on. Slay the Spire is DJ's insight. You should have put it into those terms. Come on. All right.
I don't play Watcher.
Next up, an ability that cares about attacking with a certain amount of creatures. All right, whatever.
Sure. That's going to be like Party from Zendikar.
Yeah,
or
which is
like,
a cool mechanic.
Yeah,
I love Party.
Thing from Return of Ravnica.
Battalion.
Battalion was rough. All right. Cards that let you decide where the story goes. Is that just a dungeon card? I don't...
Cards that let you do... So when I'm DMing and I give my players, these are probably just going to be like modal cards, right? It'll be like, you enter the tavern, gain 3 life or do something else.
Right.
Is my guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if
that's as good a guess as any.
I don't know if the story is a mechanic. It very well could be.
Yeah.
It feels like that's too similar to Dungeon.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look, we don't know that these are Rosewater off the top of his head. These are not necessarily, it might just mean dungeons. We don't know.
Yeah.
But here's one, a card that creates a legendary creature token named Vecna.
Ooh, Vecna. That's cool. So Vecna is a lich that ascended to godhood.
Okay.
And did so in a very nefarious way, using the Book of Vile Darkness, and creating various artifacts that was able to power their ascent into godhood. There are famous artifacts called the Eye of Vecna and the Hand of Vecna, both of which could be equipment in the set, perhaps.
Okay.
And one thinks that this would be like a Cauldra style setup, where if you control, the eye and the hand and, do something else, then you can summon Vecna.
You get the creature token, yeah.
Or maybe you don't lose the game. Could that
too could also work.
Yeah, good. Interesting. Okay. I think that's the end of his hints. And next he says some text that appears on cards. Some of this I don't think matters much, like ward, discard a card, whatever. But how about enchanted permanent is a treasure artifact. So this could be like a one with the stars type card, whatever the green version is.
It's like Imprisoned in the Moon or whatever.
Imprisoned in the Moon, yeah.
There's also Opportunistic Dragon that does something similar. And yeah, it just adds something to the horde. Not every dragon hoards, not every dragon hoards gold.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Nico Bolas. hoarded knowledge until they're like, what if
That's
he
right.
was just like dragon stalin?
Green dragons, in particular, like to hoard animals and beasts. So could be anything.
Interesting. All right. And finally, here are some new card type lines in the set.
Ooh.
These are all creatures. A dwarf citizen.
Sure.
You're gonna have to tell me how to pronounce this one. A tiefling.
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 So tieflings are devil-blooded. So the Azra from Battle Bond, Azra from Battle Bond, that is what a tiefling looks like. In much the same way that a half elf is half elf, a tiefling is a devil-blooded. Maybe not a direct descendant, but somewhere in the bloodline, they look like devil people.
Well, as a matter of fact, there is a legendary creature, a devil god.
Ooh, that's fun. I mean, there's
What
lots
could
of
that be?
There's so many devil gods out there. That could be, let's see.
Well, I know like there's like the god the devils pray to, but like was there ever anybody significant in the lore?
I mean, there are a ton of devil gods and demon gods in D&D lore of various kinds. There's Asmodeus. There's a number of other archdevils. I mean, there's a bunch.
Good to know. There's a bunch in here that don't really matter. What about a dragon knight?
Sure. I mean, we've already seen the dragon knight, right? We've got Nadar, the selfless paladin.
Oh, right. There you go.
Who ventures into the dungeon.
He's literally a dragon knight. Yeah.
He's a dragon knight. And Dragonborn is a creature type in D&D, which is being dragon-blooded. So,
yeah, I just read Nadar, Selfless Paladin's entire text box. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 as long as you've completed a dungeon.
Yeah.
So that's you made it all the way through the card.
Completed the dungeon, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a few cards that are like that, and they're mostly limited fodder, but that's sort of the rare one. Yeah, like the Gloomstalker and the Dungeon Crawler are both.
So
finish.
Yeah, so that's sort of like a thing. Like once you complete a dungeon, that's sort of a thing you have.
Yeah, you're an adventurer. You've leveled up.
You did the thing.
But like if you summon a dart at any point in the game, had you already, it's like the city's blessing sort of a deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
All right. And the last one here, which is, I think, maybe a little bit of a preview of what's to come with the Lord of the Rings set, which I don't know when that comes out next year, 2 months from now, literally no clue. But there's a halfling rogue in the set.
Sure. There's tons of halfling rogues in D&D. Lightfoot halfling rogue assassin is one of the go-to builds based on the metagame, like min-maxing of D&D. So that's like, we've seen the halfling innkeeper already. We're going to get the dwarf citizen. All of that works out well.
Yeah, and halfling's actually a creature type, which I like. I thought maybe they would be like Kithkin or something like that, but no, there's like screw it, halfling. So
I want them to update all of the Kithkin to be halflings.
Yeah,
so that I can play it as a.
I think it would be. There's a lot of really cool Kithkin cards.
Yeah.
If they were to, so maybe they'll revisit something like that when we get around to like the D&D's.
It's hard when like a Kithkin is in the name.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, it would be difficult. I wonder if there's some way when we get to the LOTR set, which I think they'll likely code hobbits as halflings, that they find some way to make it work with Kithkin, or if Kithkin just are sort of going to be left out and they just say, wash their hands of it, say, no, there's no way to make these work moving forward. It's just its own thing.
Yeah,
but they could just turn them all in that.
You can't play your Kinsbale Cavalier in this deck.
Yeah.
Idiot. We don't care.
They might do something as simple as just making the type line on them halfling
Kithkin. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Wasn't like a halfling Kithkin like a quarterkin?
Yes,
quarterkin. There you go. All right, well,
that's just simple mathematics, folks. That's why I'm here, to check your numbers.
Yeah, I think that's the end of the teasers. So we got lots of previews that'll be coming out over the next few weeks. I'm sure we'll be talking about them.
Oh, you guys looked at the showcase variants? Some of these are pretty hot.
They do look pretty nice.
Like some of these, it's like it looks like the page from the second edition PHB, and then the Evolving Wilds.
Yep.
Holy Jed.
Yeah. So
it's not my cup of tea, but
it is very strange. It does not look like a Magic card. But it does. Those are what the old modules used to look like when you got them in the mail at your comic book shop. And I love the callback to the second edition, like the good paper. The good paper.
Played. Yeah.
Yeah.
After third edition came out, we still played second just because. Look, man, once you spend the mental energy to understand what THAC0 is, you're not going to just abandon that.
Yep.
So, in context for these, Rhystic Study, his good friend at the cast, Sam, he made a video a couple years ago called Framing 25 Years of Magic. JJ will put it in the show notes for you. You should click on it after you're done with this video if you haven't seen it, or even if you have seen it, you should just watch it again. And he does a very, very good, as Sam does, his work is amazing, but just articulating, like, what does a magic card look like?
Mm-hmm.
And the context of the video is that it was made like a little bit after Amonkhet Invocations came out, and that was sort of the first time when the community just did the blinking guy gif of just like, wait, what? That's a magic card now. Okay. And nowadays you can have just an entire opening hand of just like cards that look absolutely nothing like each other, from like the Metal Secret Lair to this Evolving Wilds to just the Call Time Showcase frame to whatever. It's just really interesting, like going back and every time I just sort of question my job and career choice, I just go back and watch that video, and like I just picture myself having to sort some of the stuff at GPs in the near future, and I have a little aneurysm start to build up in my brain. But
but you know what it was? It was alters. I think alters really, when they were looking at what the top guys were doing,
let's just talk about Proxy Guy, right?
Well, yeah, I guess maybe just everybody that was doing high-end altars, what people actually wanted was so it was so removed from what a magic card looks like. When people are like, I want this to look like the Them movie poster. Or,
did you see the Twitter post by Klug?
Which one are you referring to?
I don't remember if it was specifically Klug. I think it was somebody else who like played the cards, but like the Snoopy Tarmogoyfs, the infamous Snoopy Goyfs. Mm-hmm. Where like the person was like, no, you can't. The judge was like, you can't play these. These don't look like a Tarmogoyf. Like the official rule on altars is like it has to be recognizable as a magic card up to the head judge's discretion. And it's like they took a picture of like the Goyfs and then another wacky showcase card side by side. It's like one of these is legal, one of these is up to the head judge.
Well, to be fair, the card framing issues have. The options for different printings have gone up quite a bit since there's been GPs and a need to update that document. So I think you will be seeing an update. Right?
Like that's the conversation starter of just
Well, we've come a long way, I think, is the point.
Yeah.
And also we've realized that 95% of people who play Magic the Gathering don't have a head judge to refer to.
We're gonna say don't enjoy playing Magic the Gathering.
Oh, no, that's more like 98.
Well, I'll say I actually feel like I know a fair amount more about at least how D&D is going to how it interacts with Magic in this set than I did beforehand. So thank you, Reuben, for all of the data.
Yeah, we were throwing out some random. You're like, oh, I know what that is. Obviously I know what the legendary hamster is, and we're like,
I'm just
right here, bro.
That's from 100%. I think it's from Neverwinter. I think that character.
What did you miniature giant space hamster? That
miniature giant space hamster. Yeah, it's hilarious.
He's the jumbo shrimp of hamsters.
Yep.
Does that mean that there's like an existing breed of giant hamster in space?
It's never addressed. It's always just said that he's a miniature giant space hamster.
Sure,
and there's no proof that he's anything but a hamster.
Give it time.
Ambiguity is good, and let the players decide what. Yeah.
Pick of the week. Pick of the week. Pick of the week. Time for the pick of the week.
All right. Well, before we get out of here this week, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, MTG Stocks, as we do our picks of the week here. MTG Stocks, of course, the best website for all of your data needs for Magic the Gathering, including sealed product. Now you can look at that. That's new. But this is where we make all of our picks by looking at trends, looking at graphs, cards over the past 7, 8, 10 years, however long the site's been around at this point. It's the best source of information you will find when it comes to Magic Finance, and that is why we use it for pick of the week. And I'm going to start things off. My pick of the week here is Yahini, Undying Partisan. So I was actually surprised to see that this card was not more expensive than $6, and that it also has not been reprinted outside of like a promo in a
I'm
promo
surprised
pack.
Yeheni is $6.
It feels like a $10 card, and it certainly appears to be on its way to $10. At this
one of
Yeheni,
the I mean, I've talked about this a lot, but there's so many cards in Kaladesh, and I'm gonna get blocked from like that fat pack grinder person who like they bring the fat pack over, they dump it on the table, they say there's nothing in here, please let me trade to that chrome box in the case, and then I pull out the Cascading Cataracts, the Risk Cards Expertise. This is another one of those cards where I would always pay $1 on it at the time, and when it was $1.50, $2, $3 card, whatever, and then people give me the question mark look, and it's like, yep, that's a card.
Yep, and now it's a $6 card, by the way. It's the 2/2 for 3 in black with
DJ
haste.
still pays $1 on it though.
Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a 1/1 counter on it. You can sack another creature to give it indestructible. It's very powerful. It's been climbing very slowly over the past year and a half. It's gone from 5 to 6. It's on its way to being a $10 card, dodging the reprint.
I like it.
All right, DJ,
what you didn't imagine if you're just like, I think we've disagreed with each other a few times actually. So
that's good. That's how you get a good discussion about a card, but it's also it makes it mean something when DJ says I like it. What is your pick, DJ?
What do you mean?
I think Felisa and Piru are both running Yeheni, so like that's two brand new commanders that both.
I'm gonna be honest with you. You can just say random Scrabble names, like you could Felisa, Tillabu, Goat, like Zepradu, like I don't.
Okay, the Vampire Wizard from the most recent Commander decks, and then the only Elder Dragon, I believe, from Modern Horizons 2. Does that help?
Yes.
Does it? Or do you not know shit about either of those sets?
Doesn't help me much.
You know what? Hey, tell you what. What if our editor could flash up Felisa, Fang of Silvercoil, and Piru the Volatile on the screen so that like the people watching this on YouTube at youtube.com/Brainstorm Brewery wouldn't be as lost as DJ is, because DJ only knows about tokens. If you tell him the name of a magic card, he's like, I don't know what that is. I just go through tokens and pull out $4 tokens. And it's like, I can't believe they left this $4 token in these tokens. And then I'm like, hey, what do you think about building around Felisa, Fang of Silverquill? He's like, you literally said gibberish to me, a magic player.
You can tell me what the card does, and I will know what it is.
Flying Mentor 3/2 when a non-token.
Yeah, I know what the card is. When you say it's that one from that set that does this
and then
thing.
the 7/7 Flying Lifelink dragon that's the red, black, and white. You did it. You did it.
You did it. All right, DJ, what is your pick?
All right. So we talked about two very big nouns today. We talked about dungeons. We talked about dragons. One of the teasers on Merc Rosewater's little blog that you skimmed over said this rules text is on a card somewhere. Spend this mana only to cast dragon spells or activate abilities of dragons. Now, like Jason said, I don't know much about magic cards, but what I do know is that the card's value will go up exponentially based on the number of times the word dragon is in the rules text. Because of that, my pick
if they spell it Dargan, it would be a $1,000 card immediately. Yeah.
My pick of the week is Haven of the Spirit Dragon from specifically Commander 2017, but there's another printing in Dragon's Maze, or not, Dragons of Tarkir, sorry. This is another one where you think, oh, that just got reprinted, ... 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Haven of the Spirit Dragon was, for a very long time, $1. I would put it in the cord pile all day, every day, and it has slowly crept up to $4, and it is going to go higher because this set is Dungeons and Dragons, and there are a lot of dragons in it. There's Tiamat. There's the stupid Mardu thing that Jason just talked about, whose name I already don't remember.
His name is Piru the Volatile, and respect him, or he will be volatile, and volatile people tend to give you 1-star reviews on Yelp. Is that what you want for Card Garden? I didn't think so.
Got him.
I mean, I will be happily listing these at like $7.99 and just waiting until they sell. Like,
I'm with you though. Even the Spirit Dragon is
$4 right now. It is a card that I will just stockpile up and wait, and it will continue to sell out, and then I will start selling my $8 copies.
The problem is somebody made a post on the MTG Finance subreddit in 2017 saying to buy this card, and I was like, probably not yet. And then he's going to send me a shitty DM when the card hits $5. So
that's what's going to happen.
That's a thing that's going to happen to me.
All right, Jason. Well, given that your track record is apparently impeccable, what's your pick of the week?
My track record is picking cards like Sandworm Convergence under $3. Have you read Sandworm Convergence? It's a great card. It's never getting reprinted because it's so stupid. It's a deeply stupid card. But you know what else is deeply stupid? Casual Magic. And I love Casual Magic, and I love going to community colleges where people are playing in the lunchroom being like, oh, you want Sandworm Convergence? Well, I've got Sandworm Convergence. Now let me see your trade binder. This card is currently under $3. It doesn't stay that way. A reprint obviously pantses this as a spec, but I really think this is on its way to $5. And
it pantses it as a spec until it drops to a quarter. Then you buy a
and then I buy so many that like my average cost paid is 26 cents. Yeah, DJ's exactly right.
Yeah,
I said this about Second Harvest, and everyone's like, yeah, whatever. Second Harvest is a bull card. Well, guess what? Try finding one of those under $5. So Sandworm Convergence is my call. This is go to the moon, baby, and the moon is double its current value.
I'm gonna dip my toe in if that's okay. I'm gonna give it a shot. Based on what I've heard thus far, and I used to speculate. I used to, when I was 12 years old, I would buy stuff at the pre-release, and it's not my thing anymore. But I can pick occasionally. It's very tough to reprint names like proper noun names, especially cards that are named after setting specific characters. Yes. And with a dragon set coming out, as you mentioned, DJ, I think that I'm going to mention Sarkon's Triumph.
Oh,
which is 2 colorless and a red instant from Dragons of Tarkir. Search your library for a dragon creature card, reveal it, and put it in your hand, then shuffle. If we're going to get a bunch more legendary dragons, this seems like a winner, and it's only $1.30.
Yeah, I mean, this is great because this is one of those cards that pops up on Breaking Bolt because it's an uncommon worth more than $1, and it doesn't.
You mentioned earlier if a card says double, pay attention. Well, this says search your library.
Yeah, that too.
I pay attention like that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is also a card that they don't put in precons specifically because they don't like people tutoring for stuff in precons.
Yep, I agree. This one is difficult. It's not impossible to reprint, but it's gone a long time without getting reprinted, and it's climbed up to $1.
Absolutely,
you're right. That's a great one. All right, well, I think that about wraps it up for this week. Reuben, thank you again for coming on. Where could people find you across the internet if they want to find more of your content or follow you on the social medias?
Well, you can just follow me everywhere at MoxRuby. That's MoxReuby. I'm primarily on Twitter, where I share a bunch of my thoughts. You can also follow the Magic Mike's podcast, MICS. It's a pun. We're a weekly Magic the Gathering news show, broadcasting live Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/magicmikes. You can also go to patreon.com/magicmikes to get a whole bunch of extra content there. You can catch up on old Dungeons & Dragons content of mine at the Broken Pact or Tales from Tetheria all over YouTube. And I've got some new projects coming up in the next couple months that I can't talk about yet, but there's more D&D content coming from me in the future.
I like to hear that. Everyone, go follow Reuben around the internet. Thank you for telling us about Dungeons and Dragons. We knew very little, at least I did, coming in. And I think I still know very little, but slightly more.
It's fine. You're allowed to play just like Magic. You're allowed to come to the table not knowing anything and leave having a good time.
All right. Well, and I hope that's how everyone entered this podcast, and I hope you had a good time here with us on Brainstorm Brewery. So thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next week.